I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry.
Hi, everybody. This is Apologies Accepted,
the podcast.
And I'm not Theo.
I am not the ever-working Juliet.
I am ever working, and somehow not being ever paid, but paid enough to get by, barely. But that's neither here nor there. We are talking about getting paid.
We are. Well, we're talking, our show today is about work and work-life culture and all that, and generational divides and so many things.
So many things, which we'll get into in a moment, but I really want to know what's
most importantly,
bacon.
Let's talk about
What's
us.
Shaking bacon. What's new with you, Theo?
Okay, so what's new with me is I am, okay, this sounds so stupid self-helpy, and I'm not that person, but I am consciously living my life and am making these small steps towards bigger steps, right?
Yeah.
And so there'll be a better focus on my health this year, right? Actively working out on purpose, and not to look good, but to be healthy. If I look good because of it, what a nice, happy byproduct. Yeah. Oops, I got cute again.
You're totally cute.
So that, but also, and here, all right, so here's a story. I was in the outlet this week. And I was walking around my favorite place in the world, the Pottery Barn outlet, which is like, how is there an outlet for Pottery Barn? Amazing. Just looking, it's the same crap. It's always the same crap. And there were 5 kids, and they were all under the age of 8 years old, but all over the age of like 5. So just in that starting to be real annoying age. And they were running around and they were screaming, and the place was real quiet because it was midweek. And I was so annoyed. I was annoyed at those kids. I was annoyed at the parents. I was annoyed at being annoyed, right? And that they were annoying kids. They were those stupid, smart alecky, like, mommy, look at me. Oh, God, jumping on furniture. I mean, they were a little out of control, I'm going to say. So if the mother is listening to me, honest reaction, you're a bad parent, your children were out of control, right? But then I had a moment and I was like, Theo, you know what? Let's take a step back from the situation and let's look at it through the filter of maybe you're the problem. Maybe the kids jumping up and down on couches that they don't own, that other people are going to buy in the future, maybe, right? Maybe, and running in and out of the bathroom, shouting at each other, right? You're going poo-poo, you're going pee-pee. Fucking kids. And so as angry as I was, justifiably so, I did take that minute to say, maybe you're the problem. Let's look at this as if you're the problem. And so all of a sudden it went from me being angry to me being like, look at that poor defeated mother and her 3 friends who are also defeated mothers. And look at these kids, and at least, the kids are bathed and fed and they're with the parents and they're just having fun and being kids. And are you going to buy one of these couches they're jumping on? What do you really care? And I then said, what adorable children. What a beautiful day. Let's go and do something else, which is what I did, right? And so I've been taking that sort of mindset and saying, when I'm driving, instead of going into road rage, just being like, maybe you're the problem. Now, let's be clear, America and the world. I am not the problem, right? I'm positing that what if it was wacky Wednesday, reverse opposite world, and I am the problem, right? And it's calming me down, and it's making what would have been annoying situations less annoying. And so, yeah. And so anyway, that's kind of what shaken bacon, which is very self-helpy. And I don't love that idea, but whatever. And we'll see how it goes. I'll try it for a week.
Did you get this idea from a book or a therapist, or did you come up with it on your very own?
I came up with it on my well, I'm sure it's a thing, actually. I'm sure. Probably I heard it in a commercial or I read it in a book. Who knows? But in my world, I came up with it on my own. And how I came up with it was I was thinking, as I was annoyed with those kids, I had been having a conversation with myself in my head about how we just live in this outrage culture and everybody needs to calm down. And it turns out maybe I'm also one of the people who need to calm down, which kind of dovetails into our show today. And I'll share that insight later. But yeah, so, okay, what's shaking bacon? Any kids jumping up and down on couches around you?
No, thank God.
You're lucky.
I know. I'm so glad. But I'm still struggling with my knob and tube wiring, which I probably talked about here already. So my house is 100 years old and has knob and tube wiring, and my insurance company won't insure us anymore for the building because we have knob and tube wiring. So we need to remediate ASAP, and I'm in charge of that because somehow I ended up being the president of the HOA, probably because nobody else wanted to do it. So I'm still struggling with that and getting the electricians out to quote, and they've got to come and look at each unit, and everybody's got to coordinate and all that stuff. So that's kind of a big pain in my ass right now. Struggling with that. And then on the work side, since we are talking about work today, but I went to Santa Barbara for a training session. And Santa Barbara is pretty. It's always been pretty. It's got those views of the mountains and the beach, and the office where I was, had a conference room, had a big window looking out on the mountains, so I spent more time looking at the mountains than I did looking at anybody else, which is probably why they were like, why is everyone so quiet? Because I'm thinking about everything else but you.
I'm wishing I was on the mountains.
I'm wishing I was out there instead of in here. But it was nice to be in Santa Barbara, even though it was just for a short time. And I didn't get to stay at a super nice hotel. I got to stay at a Marriott Courtyard since it was a work thing. But it was a fine Marriott Courtyard, so I'm not going to complain. But that's it. But we do have a story today about work and people working with younger people. So I think that maybe we can stretch and say that's related to your dealing with kids.
Sure, totally.
Natalie Marie is a popular TikToker who makes TikToks about corporate life and careers and working with younger people in an office. And she goes by Corporate Natalie on TikTok. And she posts a lot of videos and skits and things like that, as they do on TikTok. And she also co-hosts a podcast with another TikToker, Ross Pomerantz. And the podcast is called Demoted, which is positive. And in a recent episode of Demoted, Natalie read an email from a listener who reported that their new employee refused to attend an 8 a.m. meeting because they had a workout class. And the email said, when asked to come in for an 8 a.m. meeting, my Gen Z new hire said, oh, sorry, I can't make it. I have a workout class. Should this be allowed? And Ross, whose employment status is unknown, said his immediate reaction to the email was, are you fucking kidding me? Like, my hand is shaking and it's not from the caffeine. And Natalie said the email made her angry. You just started this job, said Natalie. I don't give a flying shit about your workout class. Also, an 8 a.m. workout class is too late. Work out at 6, maybe 7. And Ross said he understood that working out was good for your mental health and that it was very important, but he couldn't condone, quote, monopolizing your calendar for things I would consider to be personal time. And Natalie said, that's right, new hires are not allowed to do that early in their career. So I have some problems with this.
So there's so many. There's so many. But then one of the okay, let's go through the problems, and then there may be a reframing. Ooh, that's suspenseful. Okay. Ooh.
You're all about reframing.
Yeah.
Lately.
Hey, look at that. Look how. And there's so much give and take, yin and yang here. Exactly. Everything's interrelated. And so on the surface, yes, loads of problems here, right?
Yeah.
But also this is the way that employers typically think.
Absolutely.
Corporate employers. And certainly from when I started working, You were just expected to hand your soul over to the company for a paycheck and be glad you had a paycheck.
Particularly if you're salaried. If you're hourly, it's a little bit different. But if you're salaried,
different.
You are expected to be available at all times. And I'm actually I'm hourly now, and my boss told me that if I was not on the clock, I'm only part time, but if I was right now, and if I was not on the clock, he should be able to email me or message me, and I should get back to him and say, something like, "Oh, I'm at the grocery store right now, but I'll call you back at whatever time." So I'm expected to be available 24/7, more or less, just with a little bit of leeway.
So when your boss said that, he wasn't saying, "Hey, listen, Monday to Friday from 9 to 5, if I send you a text and you're like, I'm in the grocery store," he wasn't being cool. He was saying, if I send you a text on Sunday.
Well, he may have meant that. I may be overreading into what he said, but he's never texted me outside of working hours, so I'm probably...
Because you're hourly right now, you've got to wait, right? That's the trick. Once you're
salaried pretty soon, I think. Yeah, so I will really have to be available 24/7 at that point.
Well, right, and so that's the piece where it's like it starts to fall down, there's definitely a generation gap, right?
Right.
Like we're Gen X, and so for me, I will be looking for work in the future, and if I land a salaried position, I know I will expect myself to be available 20. Yeah. I will do whatever it takes to get the project/work done.
Same here. I had a meeting at 5 a.m. the other day, and I was there, even though I'm hourly. I was there at 5 a.m., and I didn't complain about it. I may have raised an eyebrow, but I didn't complain.
Right. Well, I complained to myself, this is unfair. I don't like having to do this. But I'm there and dressed and presentable and in good humor. I have a meeting at 7 a.m. on Wednesday. My workday starts at 8:30, but I'm showing up an hour and a half early. Well, one, I'm salaried, right? Okay. And two, I have to do this in order to complete it's a piece of the project that needs to be done, and this is when it must be done. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody else is in a different time zone, not their fault. I can't tell them, move to Austin and then meet with me at 8:30 in the morning. Not how life works, right? In corporate America when you're salaried. So the expectation is, and we're preaching to the choir here, in terms of Gen X and probably millennial also.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Like corporations just own your soul. And that's that, right? But with Gen Z, it does sound like it's there's a little bit of a different trend. But once upon a time, I was younger and had a different mindset about work.
Yeah.
Was it a Gen Z mindset? I mean, probably not. It was a young Gen X mindset. And I probably was like, F this corporation.
Right. And I was saying, I don't know what generation Natalie and Ross are, but they're clearly coming out on the boomer/Gen X side and saying something like, don't monopolize your calendar for things that I consider would be personal time. That's kind of ridiculous because it's like saying don't have any personal time.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, business comes first. If you're lucky, maybe at 8 o'clock at night you can get your workout done if there's no work demands on your time. But don't expect to be free to work out at 8 o'clock in the morning because somebody might need you. And there was a clip of the discussion that was shared on TikTok between Natalie and Ross, and it seems like there was mostly backlash. I didn't actually watch it. Maybe you did. But a lot of people, did you? A lot of people seemed like wondered whether 8 a.m. was even within working hours for the emailer, as we discussed. A popular reaction TikTok skit from a guy named Alexander Evidente, in which he pretended to be the Gen Z new hire, and it went viral. And in the skit, he said he'd only work hours specified during the hiring process unless he had at least a week's notice because he had commitments outside of work, which to me seems perfectly reasonable. And he said, okay, let's just say I skipped the gym. 2 things. When can I expect you to reimburse me for my class? And 2, are you going to be paying me from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m.? Or at the very least, let me leave at 4 p.m. Natalie, if your answer to both of those are no, then there's no discussion needed. So I guess Alexandra was probably Gen Z. I couldn't tell from the video. But I can't tell how old anyone is anymore.
Definitely had that. Yeah, totally right. But also, let's just say, for argument's sake, it doesn't matter what he is actually, because he was taking the viewpoint of a Gen Z worker, or let's even rephrase that, because it's not a Gen Z worker, of a worker who's being unfairly taken advantage of, right? And sticking up for themselves. And I will say that I found those two pieces to be sensible. Hey, I have a class that takes place at 8 a.m. at my gym that I've paid for. If you need me to be at work, that's fine. But you need to reimburse me for the class that I've paid for with the money that you give me to be at work, right?
Right.
So that makes sense. And or leaving early, right?
Yeah.
That also perfectly reasonable, right? And so where this, it's interesting to me that you knew that he was presenting a skit, right? Because I did listen to the podcast of Demoted, where they talk about the fallout of the situation, right? And they give a lot of background and a lot of detail that's missing in the early phases, right? And so for our listeners, what happened was Natalie, who has a podcast, also is on TikTok and is a content creator, and was doing some show promotion of her podcast and took a clip where they talk about an employee who unreasonably is saying, I'm not available for this meeting at 8 a.m. because I have a personal life, right? And what they weren't clarifying was it's actually not her employee. Somebody wrote in to her, and she read the story from the listener, right? Without clarifying that this wasn't her staff, right? And so that happened, and they got a lot of hate on TikTok because people thought that she was shitting on one of her employees who had an 8 a.m. thing, right? Also, what wasn't clear was, hey, is the employee salaried or hourly? That was never specified. And I'm trying to think, there was another thing that she also didn't clarify, whether it was salaried. Well, so they didn't clarify that this was just somebody writing in, and not a real life situation for her, wasn't her employee, whether the person was hourly or salaried. And then there was a third piece that they didn't. And so what she said was, the clip we put on TikTok was poorly managed on our part. And we presented people with a situation that allowed them to be angry and react, right? Fair enough. Then this other content creator on TikTok shows up, and he pretends to be the employee of Natalie's, who has the 8 a.m. class. What's not clear in his post is that it's a skit and he's pretending. Right.
True.
So that stitch, I'm using TikTok language here, everybody. If you don't know what a stitch is, you need to get with it, you groovy kids. That stitch got 32 million views. And she and her co-host Ross were, Wednesday night, they upload the clip. They're like, we did great. This is wonderful. And then on Thursday, they get a ton of hate, right? And it's going not only to them through TikTok, but it's also coming through like their LinkedIn pages, their show website. They're getting 1-star reviews on Apple. Like everybody is like starting to attack them in real life, being like, how dare you tell an employee they have to be at work at 8 a.m. without knowing the full story, right? But people didn't know the full story because the full story wasn't presented to them because nobody put that much thought into their content creation. And here's the issue, right? Well, so there's two issues. One, too many people have a platform who shouldn't, right? Hi, here we are. And then thing two is, it just flipped right out of my brain because now I'm on like, oh my God, we have a platform.
But they're not careful about what they say?
Well, they're not careful about what they say, and then thing two is algorithms. And so this content creator who did the stitch with the show, pretending to be the employee, ha ha ha! I'm so funny. I'm making a joke. Thank you, Natalie. How dare you tell me I have to be working at 8 a.m. Right? But got everybody riled up. 32 million views. He came back and posted a follow-up and was like, whoa, everybody, it's been a crazy 24 hours. I have 32 million views. This is not an arena I'm used to playing in. I was just making a skit. That explanation has only received 1 million views, right?
Yeah.
Because the algorithm is slanted towards outrage. What's going to get views, right? And so the show Demoted, the podcast Demoted, is still living in this universe where people are angry and mad, and 32 million people think that they're horrible, and only 1 million people actually know 1 million plus one, because now I know what's actually going on, having listened to their explanation today, right?
Right.
And so I don't know if that kind of reframes the apology that was made, but it sounds like you knew all these details.
Yeah, a little bit. And she also mentioned when she went back to apologize, she showed the original email with the additional context, and including that the 8 a.m. meeting was a quarterly meeting that all employees were notified about in advance. So it wasn't just like the 5 a.m. meeting when I found out about it via a text at 5 a.m., but it was a meeting that the exerciser knew about well ahead of time. So should have been able to schedule around. The question that I have is, so Natalie and Ross deleted their original TikTok where they complained about the 8 a.m. workout class person. And I don't understand why people even do that. So it's already out there. People already know that you said this thing, and it's probably saved on 1,000 different places, and it's also, there are articles that have been written about it. So why would you delete your original TikTok? It's just like you just panicked and you deleted it. That's the only excuse I can think of, that she just freaked out. But I think she should leave it for history.
I'm laughing, but I do agree with you. And so you have an accurate read on the situation. In the podcast that I listened to, she says, okay, so all this stuff was happening and this guy stitches this thing and everybody thought that he was really my employee, and he's not. I've never seen this guy before. I don't know who he is. He does not work for me. This had nothing to do with me, but all the hate was being directed at her. And so she reacted out of fear fear of the situation, right? Just overwhelmed by everything that was happening. And so she says that she put up a horrible apology that was awful and terrible and not well thought out, and that her big takeaway from all of this is that and she takes full ownership of the situation and how her actions exacerbated things, right? That really she just needed to take a day or two and process things and be more clear about the situation when she responded, rather than just like jumping in and responding, right?
Okay. So there was an apology of a sort, and I'll tell you what that apology said. And I did watch the video, so this is transcribed by me from the video. So any errors are mine. She said, "We got a lot of heat, and rightfully so. It was getting vicious in the comments. We decided to take the video down. To be clear, we fully deserve this heat. I do feel like with any things on the internet, a little context helps, and I think what we didn't do is provide that context, and that is on us." So at that point, then she provided the original email and talked a little bit about the context. Just to be clear, if you are not getting paid to work before 9 a.m., you do not have to work before 9 a.m. Do not condone that in the slightest. This is for a salaried employee once a quarter. If you are hourly or you work a job where the hours are strictly 9 to 5, please do not work outside those hours. You're not getting compensated for it, and that's not worth it. Again, the way the social clip was cut and just the things we were saying and how we were reacting and getting so fired up about it, totally take ownership for that. We will take the heat. We will wear it. If you want to attack us in the comments, absolutely go for it. I love you all. I support all of you in your work decisions. And if you want to do an 8 a.m. workout class, go for it. So that was a little weird, the I love you all part.
Well, yeah, right. And also, like, if you want to do an 8 a.m. workout class, go for it. Because that's not what you really think. You think 8 a.m. workout class conditionally, right? And so
I mean, if I had a meeting every quarter and it was at 8 o'clock and somebody said, I can't attend your 8 o'clock class because I have a workout class, I would kind of be like, what? Because an 8 a.m. workout class is kind of late. Because how are you going to be done and ready for work at 9 if your workout class is at 8? It's just not going to happen. So unless you're working at home and you're not showering afterwards or whatever, but it's a little bit, and that's me being Gen X. I think is that I expect people who work for me or work with me to be available for planned meetings that we've discussed and prepared for. So.
Right. Work is inconvenient, which is why you get paid to work.
It's not fun. You don't do it for free. You get paid. You should be available appropriately. Not at and 7 a.m. or 5 a.m. But 8 a.m. seems reasonable to me.
8 a.m. is pretty reasonable in my world.
Especially if you're working with Europe or India or something like that. There's kind of no way around it, really. It's a necessity. America's hero here, right? I've had calls at 4 a.m. because people are in different weird time zones, right? Oh, yeah.
And they had to take a call at 4 a.m. their time in order, and we just bounce back and forth that way. Like, it's going to suck for each of us at some point this year.
Yeah.
Right? And there you go. But, and so I think it really an issue of employers need to be clear about what the expectation is for employee availability.
Yeah.
And then employees, if you sign up for the job, you signed up for it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like,
I agree completely.
I will share an outrage moment that I had in my career that I'm outraged now, but at the time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the thing. So I had a job that people just paid me to go out drinking, which is crazy, but they did. And whatever, they called it marketing. And so fine, cool, right? I would take clients out and entertain them. And that would sometimes be in the evening. And sometimes part of that, sometimes the clients were journalists and sometimes they were writing about nightlife. And nightlife in LA had become a thing. I'm going to give my job away, but or where I was at the time. But whatever. So anyway, my job involved going to nightclubs and taking journalists to nightclubs and people out to nightclubs so they could write about LA nightlife. And that means you have to experience it. And cool. So I was getting home at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Damn.
And my job started at 8 a.m. Right? And it took me an hour and a half to get into work because I chose to live in Long Beach and I worked in downtown LA.
Wow.
But Long Beach was cheaper, and that was a conscious choice that I made, right? Economics, et cetera, and whatever. So, and I still do like Long Beach.
Sure.
So, great, cool. And I don't know, I started this new trend, this new nightlife thing, and it was getting home at 3, and I was getting into work at 9:30 in the morning. And mind you, still with an hour and a half commute, right? So I was getting maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep and then waking up in suit and tie. This wasn't like, oh, jeans and a t-shirt. It's so hip.
Wow.
And my boss pulled me aside very early on in this, right? And said, within a couple of days, and said, hey, I've noticed that you've been getting into the office around 9:30, and you know that the workday starts at 8 a.m., and you need to be here at 8 a.m.
Damn.
And I know that you were out with clients until 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning, but people perceive your job as fun. And so there will start being pushback, and people are, why does Theo get to go to all the nightclubs? And I looked at my boss and I said, you know, I would rather be at home, right? On a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And it is not fun for me to go out to a straight bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. No, thank you. That's not fun. Right. And I am working. Like, I'm not out drinking, and I mean, maybe I had a couple of drinks, right? But this isn't like getting blotto and being with my friends. I'm at work. I'm with a journalist, and I know that if I say something or if something bad happened, like I can't go off the clock, right? Especially when you're in a situation where people are drinking, including the journalist, right? They like to get sauced. Anything could happen. So be sober. Anyway, not fun. I'm not having a good time. And if anybody wants to take that role, they're welcome to it. And she said, you're here at 8 a.m. And
Damn.
I was there at 8 a.m.
Damn, that's harsh.
Yep. It sucked. And that nightlife thing went on for a couple of years. And it wasn't every night.
Wow.
Right. But it for sure wasn't only once a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, it just gets back to that. Well, I gave myself many awards.
That's crazy.
But it just gets back to that thing of I had a good job that I liked. I liked the people that I worked with. I present my boss in that one negative bad moment, but she was a good person. And I get and I understood what was happening, right? And it was just a case of this is the job. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. Nobody's begging you to keep this job. LA is not going to shut down if you quit. It did, though, when I quit.
When you left.
So there you go. Like, I've been in that situation, but I did the thing of, all right, I'm going to do what needs to be done because that's how you keep a job.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's what I would have done. I would have probably started looking for another job, but I would never have been in that job in the first place. Let's be honest. I couldn't do it. So I admire you for being able to do that job. But yeah, it was...
well, how did I get paid to do that job? I don't know. Somebody wasn't paying attention to what was going on, is what it was.
So let's look at our criteria for an apology and judge our apology, which is the thing we do best, which is judge. Was there an expression of regret? Not really. I don't think so. Was there an explanation of what went wrong? No. She blamed the way the social clip was cut. So I'd say that's a deflection of blame there. Was there an acknowledgement of responsibility? Again, yes and no. I mean, she said we take ownership for it, but again, she said the way the clip was cut worked against us. So there was no declaration of repentance. There was no offer of repair. She didn't say in the future we're not going to do this. In the future we're going to consider carefully, the situation. We're going to explain the context. No, she didn't say any of that. And there was no request for forgiveness. So for an apology score, I'll give it a 1.
I gave it a 3.
Oh,
right,
that's good.
Which higher than a 1, but still very low. But I'm nicer.
Apology. Yeah, you are nicer.
I'm much nicer. Yeah, so still a bad. Even I recognized that it was a bad apology and could not, with my new reframing. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I don't understand the apology. No, it was a bad apology.
Yeah.
But then listening to their episode where they actually dive into the situation and talk more about their feelings, I would say if they had gone through that process before apologizing and then apologized, the apology probably would be a 6. I mean, at a minimum of 5, right?
Okay, fair.
So bad apology now. And I would say maybe lesson learned. Well, I won't say. They said lesson learned was allow time for processing. So that apology is a 3. Later it becomes a 5.
Okay, so then for the apology itself, we get an average of 2. So that's not the best apology we've ever seen, not the worst apology we've ever seen, but all
not a total 0 or negative.
Yeah, exactly, not a negative, which we have given out in the past. So how about who's sorry now or apology expected? Do you have one of those for us this week?
I do. And so apology expected and won't happen. Maybe it'll happen in the future.
Okay.
Maybe it'll happen in the future. But everything's getting so political again. So here it comes.
Okay.
It's about politics. Apology expected from the special counsel that did the President Biden confidential documents or top secret documents review, where they released the report. And for Biden, it was a 300-page report. Mm-hmm. Are you fine? I mean, okay, great. The same report for Mike Pence was 1 page.
Damn.
Yeah. Okay. Right. What's the difference between, for our non-American listeners, between Pence and Biden? Well, Biden is a Democrat and Pence is a Republican. Both were in a very similar situation where they had top secret documents, just like Donald Trump had, right? And that's kind of what all this is getting to. And they handled the situation differently. They were more cooperative when asked to turn over documents than the Trump, we'll just call him the Trump, than the Trump had been. And then in the special counsel's report, although in the first paragraph, they're like, he's exonerated. We didn't find anything here. There's no smoke. There's no fire. Everything's fine. He's a nice elderly old man who's confused.
Oh, no.
And then 299 pages about how Biden's memory is failing him and how Biden's memory is bad. All right, cool. Donald Trump in deposition 400 times. That's not an exaggeration. That is an actual fucking count of documented, recorded 400 times he didn't remember. Well, he was under oath. That's what happens when you're under oath. If you're not 100% sure, you just say blah, blah, blah. The special counsel's report was a political hit on Joe Biden. Yeah. They're emphasizing his age. It's ageist. Biden's always been a little fucking goofy.
Yeah.
Right? He's just always been a little bit of a loose cannon. And maybe in the 70s, that made him a swinging guy. And now it's like, oh, it's kind of a problem when you're getting close to 84.
Do we know how old he is?
Well, no. There's no way to know. The first history book, when you open it up on page 1, starting at the dawn of time, it's just a photo of Joe Biden. Joe Biden, said, hey, there's a cave over there, everybody. Let's go live in it. And then he became president of America 2 million years later. So apology expected from the special counsel. I think it might happen in 10 years' time, but probably not now.
Probably not, huh?
Yeah. Definitely political hit job. And it makes me angry that we're going to have to live through. What month is this? February, November? 9 months of this. And it's just going to get worse and worse. Yep, but don't let me be the blackbird of unhappiness. What have you got?
Unhappiness. So I have an apology expected, which is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. I assume his last name is Frey, F-R-E-Y. It could be Frey, I suppose, but I'm going to say Frey. Like a bunch of mayors, or all mayors probably, he's been trying to get people to go back to downtown to work. And last week he said, I don't know if you saw this study the other day. What this study clearly showed is that when people who have the ability to come downtown to an office don't, when they stay home sitting on their couch with their nasty cat blanket diddling on their laptop, if they do that for a few months, you become a loser. It's a study. We're not losers, are we? These comments were made Wednesday before a crowd of about 1,000 people at the Minneapolis Downtown Council's annual meeting at the Armory, pissed off both remote workers and cat lovers. And diddlers, I guess. And he later said it was a joke and there was no such study, but he has not apologized. And he can go fuck himself. So there's no way in hell I'm going back to work. Unless
you mean to the physical office space.
That's right, yes. I'm working already, but I'm not going back to the office. The only way I would do it is if I can't find a job that would allow me to work remotely and I actually have to work to earn a living. But it's just ridiculous. And I read a report that said a lot of mayors have sort of given up now on trying to get people to come back to work. But Frey is not one of them.
Only there was a way that we could use that
space,
empty office space,
right?
I just can't imagine, what could they do? And yet we have all these people who live downtown who don't have a space to live in.
I don't know.
And I get that you can't turn all office spaces into homeless shelters, right? But maybe one of them you could.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a way to use some of that space. And I know that, companies are leasing that space and blah, 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 blah. But, it's time that we all move on from working in the office every day. It's just time that we move on. There have been 4 years now when we've been working remotely, and it's just so much more convenient and easier, and we are equally productive, if not more productive. So, move on, people.
Totally agreed. And so James was home on, what day was it? It was Friday, right? And as I famously announced last episode, I've resigned, right?
Yeah.
I'm in my last 2, maybe 3 weeks. Again, it's a little fuzzy. Maybe 4, maybe 16 months, who knows? But I'm like at the end, like the expiration date is there, and it's dated sometime in March of 2024. Great. And so I've been winding down. And Friday, I don't know, it was like 1 in the afternoon. I picked up my car keys and I was going to go to the grocery store, and I don't know, I was doing some other things. And James, who is very much in the camp of all employees need to go to an office and you need to be working in an office. He looked at me and he said, "Is this what everybody who works from home does? Like, you're just going to the store. It's 1." And I was
why
like,
not, is what I would ask James. Why not? If you don't have any work to do, if you're done with your work for the day, or if you've got an hour between meetings and you don't have anything pressing to do, why not go to the grocery store? What's wrong with that?
Right. It's not like I don't have a teleportation device in my pocket that can instantly take me anywhere in the world I need to be. It's called a smartphone, in case people weren't catching on to my dumb joke. But like, I'm available. I'm not saying, where's the wine? Oh, great. It's time to get drunk. It's 1 in the afternoon. No one can count on me later for anything. No, I am going to the grocery store. Right.
Yeah.
And so but you would have thought that I had, I don't know, clapped on some ice skates and was just like done for the day.
I mean, it was 1 o'clock. That could even have been your lunchtime. You're allowed to go to the grocery store during your lunchtime. Oh, okay.
What I left out was I was floating around the house from like 10 in the morning until doing some laundry, to come out and answer an email. But again, my role is winding down, so I don't have a lot that I need to nail down during the day. And
I have to say that a lot of time at the office is time getting coffee, talking to people, pretending to be busy. I mean, there is a fair share of that time during the working day. So there's absolutely no reason why we should be in the office pretending to be busy when we could be running our errands.
I remember when at Disney we moved to open cubes.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck. How am I going to pretend to be busy all day long?
Yeah. It
right?
got harder.
It was like a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
It definitely got harder.
It was awful. And I played so much solitaire.
Yeah.
Remember solitaire in Microsoft?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I'm good at that game now, and I win it no problem, seconds. So yeah, going into the office does not make people productive. And so I think what we have now with this hybrid of going into the office and working for a bit and then working from home for a bit, it works beautifully, right?
I would even argue that is not great, because a lot of the time when you go into the office part-time, you're not there at the same time as the people you work with, because they're part-time in the office too. So maybe you do see a couple of people that you shake their hands and get to have some FaceTime or whatever. But I have worked remotely exclusively for the past 4 years, and I don't think I'm any less productive than I was, honestly.
Oh, totally more productive working remote.
And do I miss seeing people every
100%.
day? No, I don't miss seeing people. Maybe a little tiny bit, but we do occasionally have get-togethers or whatever, and I may reluctantly go to one of those, and that's fine.
It wasn't the seeing people, it was the gaining access to information, right? And so you're walking down the hallway and you hear 2 developers talking about, the problem, and then and it's like, okay, so there's a problem with development of the software that we are going to be launching next month. I need to be aware of that.
You guys develop software?
At a former job.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was at Travelocity.
I see.
And so people used our software for their own greedy ends. And our bugs would impact their websites.
Yeah.
And so whatever, sometimes walking down the hallway, I might overhear a conversation that was relevant and important that I might not have known about, because nobody's going to broadcast that. Right.
Sure.
So I do like going into an office for that. However, I am far more productive at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Even
Or
if I
not
do
in the
laundry
office.
or whatever. So, I'm honestly at my desk most of the day. And so I do get more done, and I am able to use Teams or whatever to keep in touch with people and just sort of check in and say hi and how are you doing and that kind of thing. So I get my social whatever out that way, but I'm also able to maintain my household, and that's priceless, really. So I am all for working from home.
Agreed. And one thing that I have noticed, and I don't think it might be just the office situation that I'm in at the moment with the people that I work with.
Yeah.
But I'll say back in the day, there was always that one employee who, when we all had to go into the office and everybody had to work in the office and you have to be here, and you had to be there. That's where the computer was.
Yeah.
We didn't have computers in our homes.
Right.
There was always that one person who was like, oh, my children. Oh, I'm late today because my kid. Oh, I can't come in today. My kids are home from school today. I can't come into the office. And it was always like, okay, what can we do about that?
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who didn't have kids, I really resented that situation. And it would make me really mad.
Right.
Like, I wish I had kids.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to go to work.
But yeah, now those people are mostly taken care of because, they can arrange their own schedules, which I think is fair and adult. And hopefully they don't take advantage of it. But if they do, they'll be found out just like anyone else, and
Agreed.
Get fired.
But then also, and this is a thing that I've shared with my team, right? It's like you're gonna contact me during the day, and we do video chats and things like that internally. I might be at Target.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might be at Target.
Yeah. It's
okay if you're at Target.
Right.
What's important is that you're accessible during the work hours. When you tag somebody at 7 p.m., right? And if you can finish your job in 5 minutes,
right?
Awesome.
Right.
Great. Right. Brag. Here's where I'll never get hired again. Future employers will hear this. Every job I've ever had, my measure of my success is not like, how hard am I working? It's, can I run my job from my phone? Uh-huh. Can I send an email from my phone? Do I have, like, can I work from the grocery store?
Interesting.
Right. And if the answer is yes, if I've got my job tooled to the point where I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours getting shit done because I've built templates, I have processes, people know what their roles are, I know what's going on, all that stuff. If I can get the machinery humming and I don't have to be there to hand crank it,
right?
Success.
That's success. Yeah.
Right. And also more time at Target for me.
Yeah.
So there you go. And Target, you're welcome for this free commercial.
Yay. I haven't been in a Target in probably 10 years.
I've made it up for you. I was there twice today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Am I missing anything? I must be.
Totally. Oh my God. All right. So I was in Target every day, really. But at some point last 2 weeks ago, and they had like Lunar New Year stuff. And I forgot. It's Year of the Dragon. Happy Lunar New Year, everybody.
Happy Lunar New Year.
And Happy Black History Month. Also, it is February 11th.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, oh, look at this stuff. It's so cute. Oh my gosh, I want it. And then it was, Theo, you don't need any Lunar New Year stuff at all. You don't need invitation cards. You're not going to be throwing a dinner. But I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I didn't get it. And now, coincidentally, I have to go into the office on Monday. And I was like, oh, it would be fun. It's Lunar New Year. And so why don't I take like some, I don't know, Asian candy and cookies and crackers and whatever. And I'll go to Target and I'll get some of that Lunar New Year stuff. And I'll just put up like a little Lunar New Year help yourself.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, right? Totally cute, right? Who's everyone's favorite employee? I am. Me. I brought those crackers. You're welcome. And that dragon. All gone. Thanks, Target.
Oh,
Thanks.
wow.
All gone. Gone.
Popular.
Yep. So there you go.
Early. Okay.
So. How are you missing anything at Target? Yes, you are. I
am.
I think you'd be impressed. It's not the Target of 10 years ago.
Okay. Maybe I'll check it out one day. Maybe.
Future goal. I'm going to take you to a Target.
All right. I'll go to Austin just to go to Target. All right, everybody. I think that's it for today.
We're going to go to Target now. Bye.
Target. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Stay cool, cucumbers. Don't trip potato chips.
Catch you later, alligator.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.